All right, well, we're a minute past the hour, so let's dive in. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our webinar here today, Jumping the Hurdles, Ensuring Commercial Building Owners Reach the Finish Line. My name is John Balf, and I'm from NEEP, and I'm joined alongside my colleague here, Andy Winslow, who you'll be hearing from shortly. The two of us will be kind of guiding us through this webinar here today. So just a couple of logistical items before we get going. The webinar is being recorded, and we'll send out the slides and the link to the recording following the webinar. If you have any questions, comments, or technical issues throughout, feel free to type those into either the Q&A box or the chat box. We'll get to questions a bit later on in our program here today, but we'll try to address things as they come up, technical issues, but let us know there. This Zoom webinar does have the functionality to produce live transcripts. So I think each attendee should have the ability to either toggle that on or off if they so desire, but that can be found kind of in the bottom panel there. Whether or not you want to have that enabled is up to you. Great, so on the next slide here, just introducing NEEP is a regional nonprofit organization that's committed to improving energy efficiency and reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the built environment. So we work everywhere from Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, down to DC, Delaware, West Virginia, and all the states in between. So a pretty large geographical area, and we work on a variety of different topics, and we develop resources, we provide direct technical assistance, we facilitate working group meetings and webinars such as this one here today, all with the goal of advancing energy efficiency throughout the region. So as a nonprofit organization, we receive funding through a variety of different sources. And as you can see here, private foundations, we have industry partners as well, or our allies network. And if you're interested in becoming a part of our network, feel free to reach out about that. And then we also have our state partners as well. So all of these are close collaborators and supporters. So we appreciate all the support that we get, giving us the flexibility to work on a variety of projects and bring together groups like we have today. So thank you to all of those that were listed on the previous couple of slides here. So let's just take a quick glance at our agenda here today for the rest of this webinar. So in a moment, I'm going to be setting the stage for our topic here today before I pass things over to Andy to dive into some of these educational resources that we're talking about. And then we'll hear from Patty Boyd and Zoe Dawson about some of the work that they are doing in Washington, DC related to building energy performance standards and strategic energy management, and some of the support that they're providing to building owners. And then, like I said, we'll have plenty of time for some discussion, some questions and answer towards the end of the webinar. So as you might have seen in our marketing materials or on the first slide, this is the first webinar in a series of 3 that we are doing on our low carbon retrofit solutions team at NEEP. So this one's focused on commercial buildings. The next one, part 2, which will be on November 2nd, is focused on the residential sector. And then part 3 at the beginning of December is focused on innovative partnerships and collaborating to ensure success in the existing buildings sector. So feel free to register for those. We'll make sure to send out our descriptions and more registration link and more info in our follow-up materials as well. All right, so let's get into today's topic. And today we're really focused on how cities and how states are approaching existing commercial buildings. So cities and states have ambitious climate goals, such as reducing carbon emissions 80% by the year 2050. And we aren't going to reach that type of goal without addressing the existing building stock. So that's where a program like Building Energy Performance Standards really comes into play. You might hear me refer to that as a BEPS program, but yeah, so that's what I'm talking about, a Building Energy Performance Standard. So BEPS programs have emerged as an exciting new policy lever that jurisdictions can implement that require building owners to meet certain energy targets or emissions reductions in their existing buildings. So that's really the concept in a nutshell. there are many cities and states within our region that are looking at building energy performance standards, including DC, which we'll be hearing from, Boston, Cambridge, Philadelphia, Montgomery County. There's a lot of folks, in discussions right now at various stages of kind of implementation of these types of programs. So it's an exciting and increasingly popular mechanism that jurisdictions are looking to implement. So we'll hear more about DC's program and getting into kind of the specific considerations of these programs. But while the building owners and the managers are the ones that are responsible for making upgrades in the buildings, taking on energy projects, there's a certain level of responsibility that falls on the jurisdictions as well to ensure that building owners are set up for success and able to take on these projects. So that's really the focus of today's webinar. It's not on the policy considerations or setting energy targets. It's really all about how jurisdictions should be supporting their local building stock to ensure success so that a BEPS program is successful. So we're going to be focusing on a few different strategies that Andy will talk through here in a moment. But that's really, again, the focus of today's conversation. We've kind of broken them down into 3 subsections that I'll pass it over to Andy to highlight.
Thanks, John, and welcome everybody. My name is Andy Winslow. I'm a policy associate at Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnerships. And as John mentioned, the focus of today's webinar is less so on how to design a building performance standard and more so on what resources need to be built up in support of a building performance standard program to ensure that program is a success. We have identified 3 key strategies out of many different options, but the 3 that we are going to highlight for you today are jurisdiction-sponsored education hubs that educate the general population and bring building owners along with them. Financial incentives, which are the backbone of the improvements that need to be made. Where's that money going to be coming from? And finally, strategic energy management, which is a holistic way of managing the energy within a building. And some of the core concepts of strategic energy management, including long-term continuous improvement, as well as tracking energy usage, align very well with the goals of a performance standard. So we see strategic energy management as a great partner program when we think about building performance standards. And as we go on through this presentation, I will be talking about some of these jurisdiction-sponsored hubs that we've seen, and our speakers will be talking about some financial incentives and strategic energy management and how those can be used. So there are a few aspects that make an educational hub really impactful, and I've listed out these 4 concepts here. The first is that the education hub should identify building decarbonization concepts to give building owners an understanding of what's out there. This could include explaining why buildings are so important to target. It could include ideas for measures that could be taken to reduce energy usage. It could explain concepts like electrification or fuel switching or retro commissioning that they might not be aware of as being useful tools when they're thinking about their building. The next thing an educational hub should do is explain what the code is, what the standard is, and provide information and guidance on how to comply with that code. What are the compliance pathways? What's the timeline? Maybe the history behind the regulation. Where does that come from? The third thing a hub can do is workforce development. Doesn't only have to be a place for building owners to learn more about their buildings. It can also be a place for building professionals and contractors to learn new concepts, to integrate them more fully into the clean energy workforce, which then drives further the building performance standard and energy efficiency and renewable energy. And finally, identification of financial resources, always key. As a building owner, what you care about most is how you're going to pay for this thing. How is it going to get accomplished? So I've pulled out 3 different examples of hubs within our region that do a combination of these 3 key pieces, and each have some really cool features that I wanted to bring to your attention that could be worked into your own education hub or could be developed further and taken along. The first example I wanted to highlight is in Philadelphia, which has what they call a building tune-up policy, where they're not requiring buildings to perform to a certain level. Rather, they are requiring buildings to perform upgrades on every few years to ensure that they are continuously improving their performance. And there are 2 aspects I wanted to highlight to Philadelphia's resources. One is the Green Building United, the hub, which provides a database of local contractors and building professionals to help you as a building owner find and get connected with someone to do the work that you need them to do. And finally, on their performance program webpage, they offer classes that walk building owners through the entire process of the tune-up program, and provide the public with, a teacher to teach them what the policy is about, how their buildings can comply, and walk them through all of the ins and outs of what needs to happen. Next, I want to bring your attention to the city of Boston, Massachusetts, and their Building Energy Retrofit Resource Hub. The cool thing about this resource hub is the collaboration between the city of Boston and Eversource, which is a utility in the Boston area. Eversource is providing energy efficiency consultant teams to partner with building owners and give them targeted, specific recommendations for their buildings. It's a turnkey solution with experts to help them take advantage of utility incentives and walk them through all the steps. The other thing that's really cool about Boston is that they offer building operator certification courses, which of course develops the workforce, that clean energy workforce that we're talking about. So that's a great example of how this hub supports both the building owner and the workforce. And finally, I wanted to bring everyone's attention to the Building Innovation Hub in Washington, D.C., which was created by the Institute for Market Transformation in partnership with the DC Department of Energy and Environment. And this is a shining star example of a resource hub that provides, that takes all the 4 key aspects that I mentioned before and puts them all in one place. It covers the performance standard, it provides educational resources for building owners as well as contractors. It points out financing, and an up and coming service, which I think is really cool, is what they're calling a matchmaking service, where a building owner will create a profile and contractors will also create profiles, and then they'll be matched up based on their services or their needs. And I think that's a really cool way to kind of connect building owners with experts in an easy and possibly fun way. I believe that our speakers will touch on this further, so I don't want to go much farther in depth here. So John, I'm going to pass things back over to you to talk about an up and coming NEEP resource before we get our speakers on the line.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I think it's important to note that, likely educational hubs or performance standard programs in the future, should take bits and pieces of all of the things that we're talking about here today to really make sure that these programs are as comprehensive and as engaging with building owners as possible. So over the course of the past year or so, we've been working on a DOE funded project along with our partners, Clearly Energy. It's called BEAM, Building Energy Analysis Manager. And as part of that project, we are developing what we call the Center for Building Performance Standards. And this really has two kind of primary pathways. One is developing resources for policymakers, and the other is developing resources more in line with what we're talking about here today for building owners and managers. So there'll be kind of two sections of the center, if you will. And a big part of what we want to do is ensure that the resources we're developing are pertinent to those that need them. So we would love to hear from folks about resources that they need in the future if they're considering a performance standard, both on the policy side, but also on the what guidance do they need to be sharing with the building owners and managers in their community or in their state. So we would love to hear from folks about that. We have a couple of ideas, as you can see on the slide here. One being an operations and maintenance guide, which we have developed in the past, and may just seek to update with some of these strategies that commercial building owners should be looking at. But we see, of course, operations and maintenance as a key part of achieving a performance standard. And then, potentially some specific financing or utility incentive program information for some of the jurisdictions that are enacting a performance standard within our region. So those are just a couple of the ideas that we're thinking about. And we'd love to, collect feedback on this or other ideas that you have, feel free to send them into the chat box or email Andy or I afterwards. So we'll be kind of ramping up our work on this over the next couple of months and into 2022 as well. So this is really, again, just work that's getting underway now, but we're really excited about and hope to point to some of the other great resources that are out there from other organizations as well, like the EPA or the Department of Energy or other partners that have some of this good information already. We want to point to that stuff as well. So that is the Center for Building Performance Standards, and we'll bring more information about that as it comes together. So I think with that, that is all for our portion, our Andy and I's portion of the slide deck. And now I'm excited to introduce Patty Boyd and Zoe Dawson, who will be talking through some of the great work that they're doing in DC related to building energy performance standards and SEM as well. So with that, I think, Patty, you're starting us off, right?
All right.
And I also want to just remind everyone that we will be doing Q&A at the end of our speakers' presentation. So please use the Q&A box or the chat feature located on the toolbar. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for having me. My name is Patty Boyd, and I am, excuse me, the Senior Manager of Technology and Innovation here at the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. And our presentation is trying to wrap together several efforts that we've had in the district here. With Zoe's help, we've worked on an SEM cohort, and she'll talk to you about that later. We've done a couple of ISO 50000 or 50001 ready things as well. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the DCSU, for those of you that don't know about us, we've been around since about 2011. We just had our 10-year anniversary, and we, for the past 10 years, for the past decade, we just finished last Thursday our second 5-year contract and started our new third 5-year contract on Friday. So we're just a few days in to the new 5-year contract, but we provide financial incentives, technical assistance, and workforce development. We do a computer or building operator certification training as well. And so we are the ones that have been doing that in the district for the last 10 years. Next slide. So I'm going to try to set the stage. It's so great. Your presentation wraps up so many things that are, the things you guys said earlier, wrap up so many things about how, all of this works. And I'm going to give the DCSU path, right? So I'm going to set the stage for Zoe's SEM chat through a little bit of discussion about DC policy, the timelines that we've had that have taken us from where we are to, where we were to where we are, benchmarking, and then into BEPS, and then I'll give some details and resources around BEPS. So to start, back in 2008, the City Council passed the Clean and Affordable Energy Act. And that did several things. It created, for example, the DC Sustainable Energy Utility. It also created a funding mechanism for the DCSU, which is called the Sustainable Energy Trust Fund. So I am living in a condo in the district, and I pay into the Sustainable Energy Trust Fund on my Pepco and Washington gas bill. It's a surcharge. You can see it on the back of the bill. It also started the benchmarking requirement in the district, and I'll get into a little bit more detail on the timeline for that. And it amended the renewable energy portfolio standard. Every amendment that has happened, there's been multiple amendments on renewable energy as the prices have gone down and as more funding has been allocated to that. But the DCSU is an idea. It's a contract. The contract was put out to bid. VEIC won the contract. I actually work for VEIC, as does Zoe, and our contract oversight is done by the Department of Energy and the Environment. Next slide, please. So then, a bunch of plans happened. The previous mayor, Mayor Gray, started with the Clean Energy DC plan back in 2013, and then Mayor Bowser picked it up and finished with the Sustainable DC plan, and the little colored icons on the right. The plans attack everything: food, health, education, transportation, waste. The big one at the top for me and what I do is energy. So then, based on these plans, the City Council created the Clean Energy DC Omnibus Act of 2018, which codified several of those initiatives, several of the things that were spelled out in the plans, and that created the Building Energy Performance Standard based on the work that that we had done. You can't do the standard before you have benchmarking. So the years of benchmarking being in place were really enabled us to then have the Building Energy Performance Standard. And it also lowered the benchmarking thresholds for the size of building in square feet that must comply with the benchmarking requirement and then BEPS. So, we talk we're in the climate challenge, we're in the Paris Climate Agreement. The whole idea is to cut energy use by 50%, have 50% renewable energy. We're moving towards net zero codes. And net zero retrofits, and with the intention of getting our GHG emissions to be drastically reduced. Next slide, please. So in terms of benchmarking, starting in 2008, the Clean and Affordable Energy Act passed, and then by 2013, so it was a staged approach. The thresholds lowered every couple of years. All publicly owned buildings by 2013 over 10,000 square feet have been benchmarking. Actually, I think that was in the very beginning in 2011. The privately owned buildings, all buildings over 50,000 square feet since 2013 have been benchmarking. So that we're going on 8-9 years of benchmarking. Then, like I said, in 2018, the Clean Energy DC Omnibus Act passed. And in 2022, so starting this year, the threshold went from 50,000 square feet down to 25,000 square feet. And in 2025, benchmarking will go down to 10,000 square feet for private as well as public buildings. And we also now have a third-party verification requirement every 3 years, which starts in 2024. Next slide. In terms of BEPS, like I said, well, I didn't say, in terms of the Building Energy Performance Standard, the first cycle started on January 1st of this year. And that the buildings 50,000 square feet and above that have been benchmarking since 2013 are applicable to that, as well as the public buildings 10,000 square feet and above. The next BEPS cycle will start January 1st of 2027, which takes the BEPS down to 25,000 square feet. So all buildings above 25,000 square feet and the 10,000 for public buildings will have to comply with the BEPS, the second BEPS cycle. And then the third BEPS cycle starts January 1st, 2033. And so then all buildings 10,000 square feet and above will have to comply with BEPS. It was the first legislation, the Clean Energy DC Omnibus Act, had a 5-year cycle, but then when COVID came, there was an emergency act that passed that turned it into a 6-year cycle. So that's where we are now. Next slide, please. So now in this contract, I mean, in this slide, I've put together this first cycle of BEPS and the different requirements that happen each year together with the timeline of the DCSU contract, so you can see how they overlap. And it's not coincidental. Well, it is a little bit coincidental, but we are directly in line so that we can be there to support building owners as they comply with BEPS. So like I said, the year one for the BEPS 1 is 2021. The standards are set at the beginning of the 6-year period. You have a 5-year compliance cycle. In that 6-year, they'll do data analysis and enforcement. And each year you are required still to annually benchmark, and every 3rd year, or starting in 2022, annual benchmarking or third-party data verified. You will have to have your benchmarking data third-party verified by a certified data verifier. And then, you know, in 2027, BEPS 2 finishes, and we don't know if there will be a DCSU 2027 through contract. Well, fingers crossed there will be, right? Next slide, please. So some of the details around BEPS. So what does BEPS do? It sets a minimum energy performance lower than the local median Energy Star score by property type. I said 5-year cycle here, but it's a 6-year cycle. I need to change the slide. I apologize. Where for the most part, a 20% in energy use intensity reduction is required. There's a couple different paths to compliance. If you are within 5% of the standard, you can do the standard target pathway, and you only need to hit the target. You don't need to do a full 20%. But if you're 30% away in EUI from the target, you only have to do 20%. You don't have to do the full 30%. But that doesn't mean you'll comply with BEPS 2. That just means you'll comply with BEPS 1. There's a penalty for non-compliance, and as it stands right now, that penalty is maximum penalty is $10 a square foot. You know, depending on how you work and how much work you do and how much, you know, collaboration there is, you know, the DOEE's intention is not to penalize, it is to get energy savings in the buildings. There's a task force. That's actually me in the pink and black standing next to the mayor. A little shameless plug. I put in there, I am on the BEPS task force, and we have been meeting for over a year to help DOEE create the building energy performance standard, the rules, and, you know, just taking into considerations. I'm sure a lot of you know many of the people in this picture. There's Cliff Majerzik from IMT. IMT is a teaming partner to DCSU. And, you know, they are running the hub. We are in close collaboration. One of the resources that you talked about, Andy, was the regulations basics. You saw that. DCSU has been a funder of code compliance resources through IMT since 2014. So we work in very close collaboration with IMT on many of the resources, not all the resources. Okay, next slide, please. More BEPS details. One of it's not an anomaly, it was called out in the legislation that campuses such as higher education campuses, universities, of which I believe we have 7 or 8, you know, they don't get an Energy Star score. They have different energy use types, you know, high intensity property types. You know, they could have a medical school with MRIs, right? Or MRI machines. That would change the way they are treated compared to, you know, if that's George Washington, right? Compared to maybe a Hopkins University that just has office space and classrooms. So we use source EUI as a metric for them, and we create, or DOEE works with the university to create a blended custom standard to adjust for the high intensity property types by square footage. So they have it's a little bit different, but if you read the regulations, you can see what that standard is for each one of those campuses. Like I said, there's principal pathways of compliance. There's the performance pathway where you would try to get a 20% improvement. There's a prescriptive pathway where you follow rules that were created by DOEE that are very strictly lined out in the BEPS rules, or the standard target pathway where if you're, say, 5% away from the target, you just try to meet the target. So the first 4 building types there, property types there, multifamily, office, K-12 school, and hotels represent, I don't know, 80% of the square footage in the district. and they do have a Energy Star score associated with them. So for example, multifamily housing, the standard is 66. But it uses a local median. But like I said, some of them, the medical offices, hospitals use the national median instead of the local median. And then some that if you don't qualify for an Energy Star score, you use an EUI. Next slide, please. So quickly, I'm almost to the end. BEPS Resources, we have the DC Sustainable Energy Utility, the DC Green Bank, and the Building Innovation Hub. I'll just get a little bit more into those. Next slide, please. So the DCSU in our new contract. So we will have standard offerings like we've had for the last decade, right? Prescriptive rebates, custom incentives. We'll provide technical assistance. We do workforce development. Those standard offerings will continue. We have changes in the gas measures that we will support to align better with the plan, the Sustainable DC Plan, the Clean Energy DC Plan, and the Clean Energy DC Omnibus Act. We will still support financially O&M measures for gas-fired equipment. For market rate, non-low income, new residential and commercial gas-fired equipment will no longer be financially supported. In fact, we took our residential furnaces and hot water heater gas-fired off of, we haven't been supporting, I think, since August. As of October 1st, we will no longer support those. In low income, for low income multifamily gas-fired equipment, they may no longer be financially supported, but we have the ability on a case-by-case basis to bring a project to the client for approval. Another thing that we are very proud to have been entrusted with to implement is a retrofit accelerator. So we actually have been provided funding to the level of the DCSU funding itself to create a retrofit accelerator for the district, working hand in hand with the Building Innovation Hub, DOEE, the Green Bank, and others to ensure that some of these buildings that need the most help get it. So we're starting with affordable housing. We will be providing ASHRAE audits at, 60 to 100 buildings. Some of them may have already had audits, so we don't have to do them. We're still working through the list of buildings that we are going to support. The, ASHRAE level 1, 2, or 3, the level of audit will depend on the distance from BEPS, how far away the building is from BEPS. And we will also, through that retrofit accelerator funding, be able to provide rebates, incentives, or direct install for selected energy efficiency projects. So we're working right now on the design for that program. And I'm working on the design of that program. And so we hope to roll out some more details shortly. Next slide, please. Really important here in the district is that we have the DC Green Bank, and they have several different offerings. I have to admit, I'm not an expert in their offerings, but I do have them summarized right here. So they have CLEAR, commercial loan for energy efficiency and renewables, where they give up to 100% financing on approved energy efficiency improvements, and up to 30% financing on other improvements, like if you needed to fix your roof in order to put a solar panel or something like that, they will pay for that. Most people know what PACE is. The PACE was ran separately from the Green Bank. I think it was also in the Clean and Affordable Energy Act. But you are able to finance your upgrades and then do a loan repayment through your property taxes. That has now come under the purview of the Green Bank. Next, they have a tool called Navigator that if when you go through that process, you can get money for your pre-development work. They just signed a big deal. I can't remember exactly who it was with, but they put out a press release. I'm sure you can find it to do pre-development work for a low-income multifamily development. And then this is the fun one, is they're doing open solicitation. If you have an idea that you think would be great to go through the Green Bank, bring it to them. And they are, they want to hear from you. They want to hear of new and clever ways to incentivize energy efficiency. So that's the Green Bank. Next slide, please. Building Innovation Hub. We heard a little bit about it earlier, but they provide resources and connections to help building owners and everybody improve their buildings. They are one of our Retrofit Accelerator partners. Like Andy said, they do regulation basics. They have the building to vendor matchmaking. They're putting best practices for building operations out. They will have links to all this funding and financing as well. And I'm excited to see what they do, because like you said, it's kind of the gold standard, I think is what you said. But they are doing a really great job, and we're happy to partner with them. Next slide, please. So that kind of set the stage for what we're doing, what's happened in DC, where we came from, where we are. And then I've been working, I don't know, for a few years with Zoe on a couple different SEM type offerings. And so I'm going to turn it over to her to talk about what we've been working on together over the past few years. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Patty. That was a great framework, and I think, like base introduction to everything that the DCSU has been up to and is doing. And just very, very quickly, just to introduce myself a little bit, I'm a senior consultant at VIC. As Patty mentioned, VIC is actually the organization that administers the DCSCU, and I've been helping to run and deliver the DCSU's SEM pilots. I'm an SEM coach for the DCSCU currently, and I also work both in the state of New York and in Hawaiian SEM programs, as they're specifically focusing on engaging commercial customers. So I'm just really happy to be with you all today, and I will try and go through all the slides as quickly as I can so we can leave some space for Q&A at the end. So Andy, let's jump to the next one, please. Thanks. So I wanted just to give people like a basis of what the DCSU has been up to with regards to SEM, because for those of you who are listening, that are aware of SEM activities, SEM has been going on for quite a long time in the industrial sector, but it's relatively new to commercial and institutional customers. And I think the DCSU has really been leading the charge here with figuring out not only how to engage these customer groups, but also how to align the SEM principles with some of those other key goals and initiatives, both voluntary and mandated, that these customers are having to face. So just a quick review of the slide here. I mean, DCSU started actually investigating SEM as a way to engage their customers more broadly back in 2019. And it was a little bit fortuitous and maybe a little bit coincidental that was when a lot of the conversations around BEPS were also going on. Things off and engage two cohorts relatively quickly and really start to test out how SEM could be used to help support conversations around not just compliance with BEPS, but also interlink those specifically with management of your energy, management of your waste, reduction across multiple different areas. So right now we have two cohorts that have already been completed. We completed a federal cohort with 6 customers back in 2020, and we also completed another cohort of university customers in the district, which included 8 district universities and 1 Maryland-based university as well. And we currently have plans underway for 2 new cohorts that'll be gearing up at the end of this year and launching early next year, one for hospitals and another one for the multifamily HUD classified buildings specifically. So the nice thing that I think this timeline shows you is that while the cohort themselves, that's a group of peers that are engaging in a 12-month training curriculum, while there is that SEM delivery aspect, because of the DCSU's contract and because we wanted to make sure there was alignment with this BEPS compliance series as well, you'll notice that the engagement doesn't stop when the cohort stops. We purposely developed this SEM program to ensure that there would be continual support through the DCSU, through all of those different program offerings that Patty just laid out, to ensure that they're not only having their capital project upgrade needs met, but we're also checking in with them continuously through this first cycle of BEPS to make sure that they're on their pathway, on their journey towards BEPS compliance, or if they're in compliance with BEPS, that they're on their journey and on their pathway to ensuring that in the second cycle of BEPS, that they're thinking strategically how to plan most effectively for that. Next slide, please, Andy. One of the ways that it's kind of interesting to see how we address this, specifically with regards to aligning SEM with other commitments, is to take a look at how we introduced universities specifically to SEM. SEM at its at its core is obviously an energy management, a waste reduction, strategic planning mechanism. But universities themselves have multiple other different initiatives that they're keenly focused on and interested in. And sometimes they are the driving forces behind engaging across campus activity. So we took a lot of time looking at how we could best align SEM with some of these other key university efforts and goals. So whether it was a desire to reach Energy Star certification, whether they had their own internal GHG initiatives, the carbon commitment from climate leadership, or whether they were just looking to reach a certain designation underneath STARS, which is the sustainability ranking that a lot of academic institutions followed, we saw that this was a natural opportunity for us to demonstrate how the framework of energy management and implementing energy management across a campus could also allow them to effectively track some of these other important data points, allow them to effectively report out multiple different metrics at the same time. In the same way, it allows us to also integrate conversations around benchmarking, which they were already having to do in the district, as Patty mentioned, that really got us into how do you create a central framework that a university can use to both meet these internal goals, but also these external regulations, external requirements, and external commitments. Next slide, please, Andy. The same sort of went for our engagement with hospitals as well. With hospitals, I think it's fairly, one slide too quickly there. With hospitals, I apologize, this slide when we PDF'd it, it kind of like took away some of the other areas that they're engaged in. But with hospitals, when we talk about trying to engage them in a strategic energy management activity, while hospitals are very energy intensive, when it comes down to it, energy really only represents around 2% of their costs. So, trying to get, hospitals to engage and, to think about why they should become more energy efficient can be a challenge. You have to be able to pair it alongside some of these other core missions, some of these other core visions that that hospitals have. And for hospitals specifically, one of the things that's very important, and this is the little diagram, the IHI triple aim that you can see on the right-hand side, is to talk about the health sector's focus really on patient care, community care, and just general health. So if you can show that through managing your energy or improving the efficiency of your HVAC equipment, for example, helps to improve your patient's health, helps to improve your patient's comfort, that suddenly becomes a metric that becomes far more palatable and interesting for some of those more senior leaders to actually agree with and agree that this is a program opportunity that they should be engaging with. But similar to within the district as well, hospitals are required to benchmark, they are required to comply with BEPS as well, and providing them again with just a central, easy to follow framework that allows them to not only meet those compliance requirements, but also meet these multiple other goals that they have to do, just became like just a very simple and very easy message to share with everybody. Next slide, please. In SEM programs, we always like to do feedback loops. I mean, I think it's one of the key things. SEM coaching is all about facilitating a conversation. So we always want to know what's valuable, what customers, are really looking for in the conversation and what they want to get out of and then SEM programs. So this is a slide that we actually shared after our first engagement, where we asked all of the participants to rank what they felt was the most important, the most valuable lesson that could come out of SEM. So it focused on everything from those quick no-cost energy savings that we traditionally think drives people's engagement in SEM program, through training around technical pieces of equipment or systems, to peer engagement. But BEPS and alignment with other environmental GH goals, those became some of the two top ranking value propositions for engaging in SEM. So we realized that this was something that we had to interweave with across all of our trainings to ensure that we were speaking directly to what our customers and the participants wanted. Next slide, please. This is, I think, for anybody that's a facility manager or who has been engaged in SEM before, they might have seen this slide being used before, or can definitely feel the quote that's down below there as well. In spite of all of our best intentions, integrating SEM is really hard. Integrating a strategic approach to energy management is hard if you are the only one that is responsible for energy, but everybody else has the authority to use it. Typically, the participants that we work with in a strategic energy management program, there are challenges with collecting data, getting access to data. There's challenges with awareness of who actually has the ability to either get the data or who is engaged with other activities around a campus themselves. There's typically very limited reporting across divisions, we found. And the challenge that has been more so in the last couple of years than previous is motivation and support. Every single participant that we have worked with in an SEM program over the last 18 months has been challenged by staff shortages, by the ability to do more on top of what they're already doing in their daily jobs. So one of the things that we've always focused on through SEM at the DCSU is how do we best create a system that isn't creating added pressure, it isn't asking people to work harder, it's asking people to find ways to work easier and smarter. Next slide, please. The next two slides are slides that I often use in SEM coaching, and they really kind of speak to the importance of strategic planning. And this is strategic planning around anything. And these were central tenets to the DCSU SEM program, is to really allow people to step back and not just think about SEM being a focus on energy management, but SEM talking about the strategicness of planning around anything. I think we can all say, if we look at the little matrix on the right hand side, we probably spend most of our life in the urgent buckets, being disrupted by emails, by phone calls, by dogs barking. We're all working from home. There are multiple different things that are going on. It's really hard to set aside time for the things that are important. And strategic planning isn't important, but it is often not considered urgent. Yet when we talk about making sure that organizations and institutions and others that have these long-term 5-6 year planning compliance requirements, that requires strategic planning that really allows you to make the best decisions possible to meet those goals, be they energy related, GHG related, or other. And it's a constant reminder when we talk through the SEM program about how to compartmentalize those urgent versus important activities and dedicate the time and the resources to ensure that they can be supported effectively. Next slide, please. This is the other side I mentioned I typically share with SEM cohorts, is that we all know that, reality often isn't, as neat as a graph. SEM is often referred to as continuous energy improvement as well. I like to call it continual because life doesn't ever happen in linear upward lines. Life tends to be a little bit more of a maze where we hit speed bumps, we hit a fork in the road. But as long as we're aiming, as long as we're moving along, the trajectory that we're looking to, then we're making that incremental progress. We're making that continual improvement that we're looking to. But that's only going to happen if we have put in place those strategic processes, those strategic steps around goals for a year, goals for 5 years, targets that can be set, teams that are going to be supportive of those initiatives. So while reality might be messy, I think when we talk about SEM as this integrated approach to effecting real change, what we're looking for is that continual improvement, as opposed to the idea that continuous, ever achieving exponential growth is going to be something that is real. Next slide, please, Andy. One of the other ways that the DCSCU has been delivering its SEM initiatives is actually by working in partnership with the DOE 50,001 Ready training materials. This is a free resource of tools and materials that are available in multiple different languages. And for those of you that are familiar with the global standards underneath the ISO label, that's the International Organization of Standardizations, ISO 50001 there is for energy management specifically, and the 50,001 Ready training series was set up and developed to take out those core tenets and to sort of condense it into 25 steps that can help introduce and encourage individual facilities and buildings to integrate an energy management system at their site. The 50,001 ready training materials are all virtually delivered, so it was absolutely a platform that the DCSCU benefited using during the pandemic, and it has been incredibly supportive, especially for its federal cohort, and we're also going to be using it for the multifamily cohort coming up as well. Next slide, please. Similar to SEM as well, we did an alignment assessment as well to make sure that we were really understanding at what points through the delivery of the 50,001 ready material we could speak to specific initiatives. There's always going to be various different activities, you know, around reporting or tracking various different data points that are going to be more applicable to, say, you know, benchmarking versus the GHG initiative versus BEPS. But again, we needed to make sure that we called these out along the way. I think the next slide, I'm trying to, yeah, we've got 2 left, I think. So I'm trying to make sure we've got time for these questions at the end. You know, it's a quick, helpful reminder of what people get when they go through an SEM program. Obviously, you know, the big focus of SEM is to help you cut operational costs by focusing on energy savings themselves, and to really put in place that framework that's going to help you achieve that continual improvement and those like energy cost reductions. You know, the focus on improving the physical environment for your staff, for your tenants, for your students, for your homeowners. I mean, it's you know, part and parcel of the SEM activity, as is obviously making sure that you as an institution or as a university or as a hospital are demonstrating your leadership in sustainability. I mean, this is a key thing, you know, that the universities and the hospitals, you know, have been more focused on and interested in. But, you know, earning the recognition for your achievements is absolutely key. Demonstrated leadership is one thing, but making sure that you're recognized is another key element of SEM. And I think we're going to leave it on the last slide, which I was told it's always funny to leave people with a comic strip. Dilbert is a wonderful example of office life in real, but I think it also speaks quite well to the challenges of implementation. Even with a really well-structured energy management or strategic planning initiative, there's always going to be challenges along the way. And Dilbert is great at being able to highlight that it's not my job, and that often we don't do as good a job as providing the type of prioritization or understanding as we could or should to our colleagues. So my lesson to all with SEM and what the DCSU continues to do over the next 5 years is address these 2 fundamental challenges that we continue to see. But I think that's it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. Patty, I'm going to invite you to come back on camera. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can kind of all see each other here, but we have a few questions from the audience. Patty, I'd like to start with you. How is the DCSU engaging with LMI communities / building owners?
Yeah, so we have a long history of this. The DCSU part of our contract, one of our performance benchmarks, is to spend 30% of our budgeted dollars in the low-income space, and we've been doing that for the last decade. So that's hundreds of millions of dollars that we've done to engage with low-income, for the most part, multifamily buildings, but we can also do shelters. We do the food bank, you know, other clinics. There's a list of federally qualified clinics that we can do, but low-income multifamily buildings are the majority of our work. So, you know, that 30% of our budget is a lot of money that we continuously put into the low income or affordable housing. It's linked low income. It's defined specifically in our contract. Sorry, they're pinging me. And then with the retrofit accelerator, the first batch of funding that has come in, which is to over $21 million, is specifically for naturally occurring housing, affordable housing buildings and DHCD buildings. They've assigned it to. There was a separate batch of ARP funding that is going to DCHA buildings, which is a different entity in the district. But we have several account managers that are continuously doing outreach in the low income space. I hope that answers.
And on the topic of the retrofit accelerator, I don't think you mentioned when it's officially going to launch.
That's a good question. I need to have the work plan approved before it officially launches. We have been in contact with multiple buildings on the list. The hub has been doing outreach to many buildings on this list, and they're having a workshop with some of the buildings coming up in October. An official launch, I don't have a date for, because we're still trying to figure out how much budget we're putting towards each activity and what the final activities will be, but shortly. And I am putting out an RFQ for auditors, hopefully by the end of this week. But
excellent.
That's the goal.
Well, hopefully that happens. It's really exciting.
Yeah, legal approved it today, so
there we go.
We're on to the next step of getting it on the website. Yes. So yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm just going to turn my attention to Zoe.
Sure.
We have a question about the cohort model and whether all the members within a specific cohort are working towards the same goal. And then if you have any best or if there have been any like highlights of why a cohort model works, that like what's the collaboration benefit?
Sure. It's a great question. I mean, I think at its heart, I always see like the value of the cohort model is that peer collaboration and actually helping to, help provide answers to those create those aha moments and provide answers to some of the sticky questions that cohorts have, because my job as an SEM coach is not to provide the answers, it's to facilitate the conversation. So I think, I'll answer that one first, and then I'll go back to like, do they all follow the same goal or do they have different ones? I think some of my favorite ones have come from, definitely dealing with, the universities and the colleges around, before COVID hit, how to deal with, pesky students that were fiddling around with temperatures and dormitories, and, some of the aha moments where, we presented them, okay, you have dorm competitions. I mean, you have, you bring everybody in and you engage them in, like actual active, student-led, student-engaged activities that make sure that they're not just playing around with, setting the thermostat to whatever they want to, that they're required to actually, like be accountable, for how their dormitory is performing. I mean, there are absolutely, examples of, facility managers, people who are working the physical plants, providing the very specific technical, support to one another. I mean, they are each other's peers. A lot of people within academia end up working in different institutions. It's a little bit of a revolving door, I would say, Patty, where, people tend to trade hats between the district colleges. So everybody knows each other's buildings very well. Do they have the same goals? No. I mean, every single, we always come to every single cohort group with you each have a different starting point. You each are going to have a different ending point. What we are doing is helping you to learn some of the tricks to how to best meet that goal. So, when thinking about just with BEPS, every single university and every single hospital that we're engaging with, or every single, multifamily site that we're engaging with is going to have a different starting point with BEPS. They're going to have a different starting point also, with regards to where they are on their GHG commitments as well, but they have different endpoints too. I mean, that gap is going to be different for each of them. We're trying to help present them with, the framework of how do you best track your progress towards it, and encourage them along the way. There is a value. I think traditional SEM cohorts have always put out, like, let's have a cohort goal where collectively, if we save, X% of energy, it's going to contribute to this. I think, it's nice to have that as a cohort goal, but it's not something that we singly focus on. We want the cohort to be the collaborative, family that supports like individual activities.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And unfortunately, we need to continue onwards. We're at the top of the hour now. But thank you both for your presentations and your answers to those questions. And if folks in the audience want to get in touch with any of our panelists, please feel free to reach out to John or I, and we can get you in touch. But I should be sharing my screen now again, John, for closeout.
Yes, thank you to both Zoe and Patty. Appreciate the presentations and the insights. As we look to more cities and states developing BEPS programs, I think all of these insights are really valuable for folks that are going to be doing that in the future. So just in closing here, another note or reminder about part 2 of our webinar series coming up at the beginning of November. And again, this one is focused on the residential sector and integrating energy efficiency into residential energy program design and policy development in the real estate market. So join us for that. And again, we'll send out more information. I think with that, though, we can wrap things up and just say a final thank you to our speakers and to everyone for joining us today. And we'll follow up with the recording. So thank you again, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.